Counselor, you're mute. Mr. Schattenberg, you're on mute.
Good evening and welcome to the City of Woodstock's virtual public planning meeting. Tonight's meeting is an open public meeting as required by the Planning Act, meeting for tonight, Monday, November the 16th, 2020. This meeting is being live streamed with the city's YouTube channel, and a recording of the meeting will also be posted on the city's website following the meeting. An agenda can be found on the Agendas, Meetings and Minutes page on the city's website under Inside City Hall heading on the cityofwoodstock.ca homepage. Present here for tonight's meeting are members of council, the mayor, the deputy city clerk, Alicia Dijek, of course, the city and engineer building department, Craig Wallace, the IT department is represented, and naturally our senior planner from the County of Oxford, Andrea Hackler. This meeting, by the way, is for information discussion purposes only, and no decisions will be made at this evening's meeting. Council will make a decision on the matters at the regular council meeting, and that's to be held on Thursday, November the 19th at 1:30 p.m. It will also be broadcast live through Zoom and on the City of Woodstock website. If you wish to address the council at that meeting as well, you must submit a delegation form to the city clerk no later than 2 p.m. tomorrow, that being Tuesday. A delegation form is available on the city website, and you can contact the city clerk or deputy city clerk, AD Dijek at cityofwoodstock.ca. Due to the nature of a virtual meeting, the public has been asked to submit a request to speak in advance to allow for pre-meeting electronic connectivity tests with our IT department. Those wishing to make a presentation will join the meeting via video conference, while those wishing to provide comments or answer questions will either call in or have their comments read, and they can call in actually via telephone or participate through Zoom. When recognized by the chair to speak, you must provide your name and address for the public record and your exact role in the application. Only the applicant or people who provide oral or written comments regarding the application are entitled to appeal council's decision to the local planning appeal tribunal. Please keep your comments to planning matters only and avoid repeating comments that have already been expressed. As the chair, it'll be my job to maintain our discussions here tonight. If you have not provided oral or written comments but wish to receive formal notice of the council's decision on this matter or any matter in tonight's agenda, please contact the clerk's department, and the notice will provide further information on appealing the decision will be given at that time. The planner will be asked to present the planning application in each report, and there's 2 reports here tonight on the agenda. The applicant will then be allowed to follow with an opportunity to make their comments, and we do have 2 applicant representatives here tonight as well. And by those wishing to speak in favor of the application, and then those following that may want to speak in opposition to the application will also be asked to participate. As I mentioned, there's 2 items on tonight's agenda. So at this point in time, we can welcome in our Andrea Hackler, our senior planner from the County of Oxford. Item number 1 on the agenda is ZN-8-20-19, application for zone change for 2725397 Ontario Inc. And the address in question is 801 Dundas Street. And Andrea will explain what the proposal is.
Thank you. So I'm just going to share my screen here. So the first application tonight is an application for zone change, and the applicant is proposing to rezone the subject lands from Highway Commercial Zone C4 to a special Highway Commercial Zone to permit a retail store for the sale of cannabis in a 232 square meter or 2,500 square foot commercial unit within the existing plaza. As council may be aware, the existing or the subject property has a recently constructed 2-story commercial plaza, and it has 4 units. And the applicant is proposing to establish the cannabis retail store in one of those units on the ground floor. Just to kind of give you an idea of the area, the surrounding uses are primarily a mix of highway commercial type uses with low density residential in the area, as well as the YMCA to the immediate south of the subject property. Within the, so the lands are located within the service commercial area. And in the service commercial policies, it indicates that these locations are located or provide for a broad range of commercial uses that are, for the most part, not to be in competition with uses that are located in the central area. So what we would refer to as the city's downtown. In the cases where we would support proposals for commercial uses outside of the downtown, it's generally because of due to incompatibility, land use conflicts, and access or exposure detail or access or exposure requirements. In addition, the types of uses that are located in service commercial areas generally cater to vehicular traffic and single purpose shopping trips. The central area, so the city's downtown, those policies indicate that it's supposed to be an area that's functionally diverse. It's supposed to offer primary business, cultural, and it's the primary business, cultural, and administrative center for the city. And there should be a full range of retail type uses, business uses, etc. And so I'm sharing that with you because the applicant is proposing to put a retail use outside of the central area. And so the concerns from planning staff and city staff are generally that this would be a use that should ideally be located in the downtown, and the applicant is proposing to have the use outside of the downtown. We feel that this would be precedent setting. We don't feel that it's in keeping with the provincial policy statement, as the provincial policy statement indicates that one of the goals of a municipality is that they should be focusing on the viability of their downtown and the vitality of their downtown. And so we feel that supporting a use that would of this nature outside of the downtown would be in conflict with those policies. In circulation of the application, city building staff indicated that we do get a number of inquiries to have retail uses located outside of the downtown. Generally, we don't support these types of requests. And again, we have concerns that when we do support these types of requests, that it opens the door to allowing full retail outside of the downtown and in C4 zones and the C6 zone, et cetera. So in light of our review, we would recommend that that council not support this application as we don't feel it's in keeping with the provincial policy statement. We also don't feel that it's in keeping with the strategic goal of the official plan with respect to the central area policies, as well as the service commercial policies. Location wise, we don't feel that this type of use needs to be located in the service commercial area. So outside of the central area, we don't feel that that it warrants this type of location due to site area access or exposure requirements. And we don't feel that it has obvious conflicts with any of the neighboring properties. So in light of that, we'd recommend that this application not be approved.
Thanks a lot, Andrea, for your presentation. Are there any questions from members of council or comments you'd like to make? Councillor Ron Fraser, go ahead.
Thank you, Councillor Schanberg, and through to Andrea. Andrea, the Central Business District ends at on Dundas at Beale Street or Victoria Street, I believe. Is that correct?
I believe it ends at Beale Street.
At Beale Street, yes.
It's in that area for sure.
At Beale Street, and that's where the Central Business District ends. And the entrepreneur district on Dundas Street ends at east of here.
I actually don't know off the top of my head. I'd have to.
I have a map, but I can't get to it because of Zoom. Anyways, so my question goes is that we have different applications for cannabis retail stores, 5 or 6 to my knowledge. One is right at Victoria Street in Dundas. One is at approximately 620 Dundas, which would still be, so one's in the central business district, one's in the entrepreneurial district, and then there's others located throughout the city. So I'm having a little trouble with this because to me, what's the difference between a cannabis retail store and a drugstore that dispenses prescription? Because cannabis is a prescribed drug. So we have half a kilometer east of this location is a Shoppers Drug Mart, which base businesses issuing prescriptive drugs, which this is too. So I'm a little confused on we're approaching this as a retail when it's actually cannabis is a prescribed drug. You can't go to a cannabis retail store unless you have a prescription and become a client and filed with that. So is there something I'm missing on that aspect according to our policies, our planning policies? I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but I'm just trying to make sense of this.
Mm-hmm. Through the chair to Councillor Fraser's question, I actually believe that Mr. Wallace can answer this question, as he would be the one who interprets the zoning bylaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through to Council Fraser's question. So the city, all municipalities.
Excuse me, Craig. I can't hear you for some reason. Is there a way to put the volume up, Mr. IT?
You should be able to hear now if Craig talks.
Okay. Go ahead, Craig.
Councilor Fraser, can you hear me now? Chris, are you able to hear me?
No.
I can hear you.
I can't hear you, Craig.
I hear him, but quite faintly.
Yeah, I can. It's really faint. I can't make out what you're saying. Sorry.
Possibly your mic level.
Okay, maybe I'll try one more time. Are you able to hear me?
A little bit better. I'll get my ear closer to the speaker.
Well, I can certainly yell. I don't have a problem doing that. So municipalities have been given direction that a cannabis store is to be considered a retail store. It's my understanding you don't need a prescription to buy cannabis at a retail store. Drugstores are selling drugs that are prescribed by a doctor. So the difference is a cannabis store is a standalone bricks and mortar store that strictly sells cannabis to the public. And we've been given direction that this is considered a retail store in our zoning bylaw. So the city permits the cannabis store in any zone where a retail store is permitted. Typically in the zoning bylaw, retail store is permitted in the C5 zone, which is downtown, the C3 zone, which is around the perimeter of the downtown, and in various C1 and C2 zones located throughout the city. C2 zone is the Sobeys Plaza and the Springbank Plaza.
Okay. Where's C1, Craig?
There is a C1 special, which permits a retail store, and it is on Devonshire, where the Cutchie's Plaza is, or
Okay.
sorry, the plaza where the Cutchie's is.
Yeah, the Circle K Plaza.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, if you don't mind, Mark, I'll just keep going for a minute.
Yes, go ahead, Ron.
Okay, so that, now I have a little better understanding of that. Thank you, Craig. I suppose my problem is, though our policies indicate that retail stores should be in the business district or the entrepreneurial district or the other private zones that are appropriate. My problem is, I think with this, is that the methadone clinic is downtown and it is a prescribed drug. I really don't want to see a cannabis retail store in the BIA district. I'd rather see it outside of the BIA district. Mainly because traffic, though the street level drug users won't be using a cannabis retail store, but they could be hanging around it trying to sell their wares. So to me, the farther away it is from the business district, the more it makes sense. So Greg, if we were to decide otherwise, what would be the process?
Mr. Chairman, through to Council Fraser's question. I think his question is, if you were to approve the application to allow the cannabis retail store, then it would be permitted at this site. It would be site specific.
Okay. What would be the repercussions if we did that?
I think, as Andrea said, then you're opening the door to allow other retail stores into the C4 zone.
Okay. And what does food basics fall under then? A grocery store?
Food basics is zone C4, and that permits a grocery store.
That permits a grocery store in C4?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you, Mark.
I want to step in and ask a question just as clarification for Mr. Wallace. Then I think Ron is my question would be is inside the BIA zone, applicants can still go to the AGCO and ask for a retail outlet inside the retail safely within the BIA zone at this point in time. And the city of Woodstock and a particular city council cannot really put a stop to the retail businesses in the BIA zone of this nature, cannabis stores.
Mr. Chairman, to answer your question, so typically once a person decides they want to apply for a store, they do it through the AGCO. And the license application is circulated to the city of Woodstock for comment. The building department checks to see that the store is properly zoned. So in the downtown is C5 zone. So yes, it permits the retail store. So in regards to zoning, it's an approved location. Now the city is permitted, or not permitted, but they can comment on any location where it's in respect to protecting public health and safety, protecting youth and restricting their access to cannabis, and preventing illicit activities in relation to cannabis. Also, there is a required separation from schools.
Go ahead, Ron, if you got a further question. Mr. Fraser.
Thank you, Mark. And Craig, The Y is not considered a school, right? They do have preschool there, but I don't see, I see youth going there when we get past the pandemic, but I don't see, I don't consider it a school, even though they have preschool. In other words, I can't see a toddler going across the street with their SpongeBob SquarePants backpack to the cannabis retail store, for lack of a better termination.
Mr. Chairperson, through to the question, I don't know the answer to that. We can find out the answer. We can check the act. We can check, the government has a site for those types of questions. So I can tomorrow get back to you with an answer to that question.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, maybe when you, if you come up with an answer, because I really don't think the Y is a school, but let's check it out and be sure. And if you can come up with an answer, maybe you could just send us all an email on that issue.
Yes, I will.
Okay, thank you, Craig. Thanks, Mark.
Any further questions from council, either for our plan or for our chief building officer? Go ahead, Mr. Ascioni. Jerry.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Sorry about my video too, but I think we got it figured out now. My biggest concern is the YMCA. There's no question. I agree too with Councillor Fraser of questioning if we want it downtown and everything, but it's also right beside a YMCA, which in my mind is teenagers, not just kids as well. So I've got a lot of hesitancy. So I appreciate from Mr. Wallace kind of getting that information just to, you know, further the thought process. So I guess more of a comment than a question. Thanks.
Anything else further from council, comments or questions they'd like to make? We do have an applicant on board here tonight to answer further questions or to give his own feelings and on the idea too. The zone application, zone change for 801 Dundas Street. Brandon Flewelling, I hope you're saying your name right, Brandon, from the GSP group. Brandon, give us your, I guess, pronunciation of your name correctly and your address and specifically how you represent the applicant, and then any comments you'd like to say about what you've heard here so far this evening, and back it up with some of your ideas.
Excellent. Thank you. It's Brandon Flewelling. I'm the planning consultant to the applicant from GSP Group in Kitchener. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to the application. I do have some comments, and I'll provide some further input to the questions we've heard from council so far. And maybe before I even start, maybe I'll respond to the council comments while they're fresh. First of all, it's my understanding that the AGCO has reviewed the site in terms of its applicability with their policies, and they have said the site is suitable and meets their policies. The zoning portion obviously is outstanding, but in terms of the other store location attributes that they look for, they have not considered the Y as a school and have no further concerns about the proposed location. So I just want to clarify that before I start. Thank you, Andrea, for your presentation as well and the explanation of the application. As we've discussed, we're requesting a site-specific permission for a retail store, but really it's a specific application for a cannabis retail store. And the differentiation is important for the fact that I think the OP policies are really built around trying to cater to retail uses downtown, smaller types of stores that would more traditionally locate in downtowns, well before there was a big box boom, and that whole retail scene has kind of passed on. The policies were built to direct a lot of retail uses to the core. As Councillor Fraser noted, so the site is zoned C4. The C4 highway commercial zone permits a range of uses, but a few of them of note would be brewers retail, drugstores, Councillor Fraser noted, a retail building supply store is also permitted. So is a retail food store, retail nursery. So the retail nature of the highway commercial zone is certainly something that is not new. The question is, and we'll get to the OP review, Is this the type of retail that should locate in the downtown, or should it locate elsewhere for other, because of other characteristics? But the comparison on a functional basis to a drugstore, I think, is really important, because yes, the zoning is going to define this as a retail store, but the definition of a drugstore from the city's zoning bylaw states that it's a retail store which dispenses prescription drugs and sells non-prescription medicine, medical devices and supplies, health and beauty products, and associated sundry products, and may also sell other non-medical related products, not limited to books, magazines, toys, and food. So what's important of that is a drugstore is a permitted use as of right today. You can open a drugstore in this location. And again, the definition is going to call this a retail store, but the ability to sell non-prescription medicine, so to buy cannabis is something that is the same as what would be permitted as in a drugstore, as well as associated sundry products and other non-medical related products. So anything that might be cannabis related and could be potentially sold in the store is no different than what can be sold in a drugstore as of right today. And I think that's important to realize. We're not trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. We're dealing with definitions here, and the use on the ground and what's going to impact the larger neighborhood, I think is the bigger discussion. I would like to say that as noted, the proposed cannabis store is going to be within a newly purpose-built retail plaza. There are 4 units within this plaza. The existing tenant is a Hasty Market, and we're looking to utilize space within this newly built, purpose-built retail plaza. When looking at the staff report and the official plan policies, it really comes down to the discussion around the service commercial designation and what types of uses are intended to locate here. In the staff report, it notes that staff are of the opinion that the proposed use does not cater to vehicular traffic and does not appear to be a single purpose use reliant on passing traffic or a wide-ranging market area. I think the first part of that is certainly something that we would disagree with from a retail perspective. We do believe that a cannabis retail store is going to be a single purpose type of trip. People are going to go there, no different than taking a trip to the beer store or the liquor store, 2 other facilities which are both located within the C4 zone. Brewers Retail, the beer store, having a as of right permission. The liquor store located next to the Shoppers Drug Mart having a site-specific zoning permission to allow the retail store. But again, these are purpose destination trips. So you go out and one of your stops is to, for example, to stop at the liquor store or the beer store or the cannabis retail store. Next, there's a comment from the staff report that says the use in this specific use hasn't demonstrated that why they're not suited to the central area because of characteristics of the store, the retail requirements themselves, or compatibility issues. So, tell us why you can't go in the downtown area. As stated, the downtown or the central business district permits retail stores as of right. By allowing this retail store in a service commercial area, I don't think we're not taking away anybody's ability to locate in the core. Again, as Councillor Fraser said, there are 2 other applications identified on the AGCO website for cannabis retail stores within the central business district. So again, the stores are looking at that location, but it's not the only location. There's a number of factors that go into where an operator wants to locate. In this situation, part of the appeal was the new purpose-built retail space, something that would nicely suit the business operations. I'll wrap up my comments with saying that while we're looking at a site-specific request to allow a retail use in a service commercial area where the policies don't permit as of right retail uses or standalone retail uses, but they allow so many other things, and they allow a drugstore, they allow a brewer's retail as of right. What we're asking for is, it's a specific use. It's a new use that hasn't been contemplated. Certainly when most zoning bylaws were written, only the newest ones would even have perhaps a more defined definition or, location of where these uses are permitted. So I would certainly like council to consider this request. We think it's a reasonable use of the property. It's a reasonable use of a purpose-built retail space. And for those reasons alone, it is a type of retail space that caters to a wide market area. And for that reason, I certainly have the opinion that I think it does conform to the official plan, and that it's a reasonable location to have this store. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Just as a point of clarification before we go to you, Ron, is to give you the floor. I did go to the AGCO website before the start of this meeting, and the 6 locations proposed for Woodstock, as we talked about, the ones sort of downtown or central area, 579 and 620 Dundas. Then there's 801 Dundas, that's the one we're talking about now. 930 Dundas is in the Giant Tiger Plaza. 951 Devonshire is in the Circle K Plaza. And then 385 Springbank is in the Sobeys Plaza. So those were the 6 that were on the AGCO website that I looked at, whatever, an hour or so ago. Ron, you had a question or a comment you wanted to make? Go ahead, Mr. Fraser.
Yes, thank you, Mark. And through to Brandon. I'm not going to try and pronounce your last name.
That's okay. That's okay.
Because I'll embarrass you and me. You mentioned the LCBO store. Could you just repeat your comment on our LCBO store?
Certainly, through you, Mr. Chair. The LCBO store is recognized as a site-specific zone within a site-specific zoning in the city's zoning bylaw. I believe it's a C4-3 zone, and it specifically permits a retail store of whatever size the LCBO is as a permitted use on that property. So it doesn't, it doesn't say LCBO or liquor control board store. It just says a retail store of, I think it's 10,000 square feet.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure I had that right. And Craig, I'll fire you another email on my question about the LCBO store and whether it was given a special permission by council at the time to be there, or if it was something acquired by some other means. Thank you, Mark.
Any other further comments or questions for Mr. Llewellyn from GST Group from members of council? Questions or comments they'd like to make? As I mentioned before, of course, no decisions will be made tonight. They'll be made at the City Council meeting on Thursday afternoon at 1:30, which will also be a broadcast live on the YouTube channel and on the City of Woodstock website. But at this point in time, we do have to ask if there's anyone who is registered or is participating in tonight's meeting who would like to speak in favor of the application. Naturally, we do want people to register in advance, so I don't believe there is anybody who has registered to speak either in favor or against the application. Anyone online to speak against the application? Seeing none, I guess that's it for item number 1 on the agenda, ZN-8-20-19, the application for the zone change for 2725397 Ontario Inc. For 801 Dundas Street. And we thank Mr. Brandon Llewellyn for participating in tonight's discussion as we move forward in the agenda.
Great, thank you.
Item number 2, therefore, is B20-43-8 and ZN 8-20-17. It's an application for a zone change and consent for JJZ Developments, Inc. And the address in question this time is 1256 Parkinson Road. As we welcome our senior planner, Andrea Hackler from the County of Oxford, back one more time to discuss the number 2 item on our agenda tonight.
Thank you. So the next application, I'll just share the screen here first, is an application for severance and zone change. And as council may recall, the only severance applications that are brought before council for a recommendation to the Land Division Committee are for the creation of vacant lots. So in this case, the applicant is proposing to create a vacant industrial lot and retain an industrial parcel for similar purposes. Council may be familiar with this site. The existing use on the retained lands is, it was Huron Pallet, and apparently that that business is no longer in operation, and the existing building is currently vacant, according to the applicant. And then the application for zone change is just simply to rezone a portion of the lands to be severed. And currently they are zoned M2, just this narrow piece that fronts onto Parkinson. It's zoned M2, and it's going to be rezoned to M3, and that would be a condition of the approval of severance, that the lands have consistent zoning. So basically it's to eliminate a split zoning. And then the applicant is proposing on the lands to be severed to establish a truck terminal, which is currently a permitted use under the M3 zone. And so I've just provided a site plan of what the proposed use is, but the zone change is not to allow for the truck terminal or not. It's just simply to eliminate that split zoning. So the application was circulated to a number of agencies. Staff provided comments. A number of the comments that were received have translated into the request for conditions of the severance approval. They've been fairly standard conditions. Some noteworthy comments that were received from staff were one from the building department, which requested as a condition a building report that would be prepared by an architect or professional engineer, and it would outline the requirements from the Ontario Building Code for spatial separation and exposure protection. And that's basically with respect to the existing buildings on the site. When we create a new lot line, the building department requests that report. In addition to that, the engineering department at the city has indicated that there's a 1 foot reserve along Commerce Way, which is fairly common when lands have not been fully developed in, for example, in a business park. And that's basically to recover costs for services and infrastructure that were installed along Commerce Way. That has been brought to the applicant's attention, and they're fine with that. The other comment that was added by the Public Works Department for the county was simply that they do not support the access of this property to Parkinson Road. They feel that there's adequate access to the site through Commerce Way, and that if they provide truck access or any sort of vehicle access, it would mainly be transport trucks, that it would pose a safety risk to neighboring properties. Council may recall that these are generally residential uses along Parkinson. And so although the long-term plan is that those residential uses would be transitioned out, they remain today, and there could potentially be sightline issues if there's truck traffic coming up and down. Additionally, just in general, it's Parkinson Road is a county road, and there's a high amount of traffic already on that site, and just generally Public Works thought that it would be safer if trucks were entering and exiting the site through Commerce Way and up onto Universal Road, where there's proper traffic. I believe there's a stop sign there, so they would be stopping there, and it'd be much safer for the public in the area. Aside from that, the standard conditions have been applied, and they're in the list of recommendations. Generally, staff are satisfied that the application or the applications for severance and zone change, that they are consistent with the provincial policy statement as they facilitate the future development of underutilized sites. They're promoting efficient development, and there's adequate servicing available to facilitate the development of the site. And it's also accommodating a range of employment needs and facilitating economic activity in the area. The lands are located in the Commerce Way Business Park, and we feel that the proposed severance and zone change are in keeping with the policies for Commerce Way. And we also are satisfied that the proposed lot to be severed and retained are in keeping with the relevant provisions of the zoning bylaw with respect to area, frontage, depth, etc. And so in light of our review, we'd recommend that the application for a zone change be approved in principle until we receive a reference plan in the future. And if the severance application is approved. And we would also recommend that City Council recommend to the County Land Division Committee that the application should be approved.
Thanks a lot to our senior planner, Andrew Hackler from the County of Oxford. But maybe I have a quick clarification question, Andrew, before we go forward on this. I'm just curious, can we say yes to the severance change or the zone change and the severance and say no to the extra access to Parkinson Road? Because the other thing that I noticed on the map too, maybe in the larger map, is that the fire hall is basically across the street from the former Huron Pallets. So I'm just thinking about safety too. Now that the fire trucks are leaving every 5 minutes, because obviously they're not, but just as a safety factor too about trucks accessing Parkinson Road, to maybe say no to the access to Parkinson Road, but say yes to the zoning change and severance. Is that permitted at all, Andrea?
So in response to your question, Councillor Schadenberg, we've actually had discussions with the applicant about not supporting the entrance onto Parkinson Road, and they're agreeable to that. That would be something that would be considered through the site plan approval process, but ultimately the county would have to grant access onto Parkinson Road, and they've indicated obviously that they're not going to do that, and the applicant is fine with that.
Thanks a lot, Andrea. At this point in time, I would like to ask if there's any comments or questions from members of council for our senior planner on this application. We do have a member from the applicant who's on board here this evening, so maybe we'll welcome him aboard at this point in time. Simon Gordner, on behalf of the applicant, is here from JJ's Developments. Please give us your full name and your address and the company you work for, and any comments you'd like to make on this report, Simon.
Hi there. My name's Simon Gordner. I work for Granville Construction as a project manager. I'm overseeing the project of the land severance and potential industrial warehousing. As you guys had mentioned, the intent is to consolidate industrial properties for the zone change from M2 to M3, just to increase opportunities for future development. As Andrea said, we are okay with not having that future access onto Parkinson, and the severance would still go forward as planned. Other than that, I don't really have a whole lot of comments, unless you guys have questions for me.
Are there any questions from members of the council for Mr. Gordner? I guess I have a question. Andrea put up a picture of a trucking depot. Is that sort of what the plan is for the construction company to be putting their Simon?
Yes, that's correct. So it would be a specialized trucking company. So they specialize in large or heavy trailer loads.
Any questions or comments from members of council? Simon, we thank you for joining us this evening, that's for sure. And of course, no decisions will be made here tonight. The city council meeting is on Thursday afternoon, that being Thursday afternoon, November 19th at 1:30 p.m. again on Zoom and the City of Woodstock website. At this point in time, I wanted to know if there's anyone who's registered whatsoever to speak in favor of this application that is registered to take part in this meeting here tonight, public meeting, of course, under the Planning Act, to speak in favor of the application? I didn't believe there would be anybody here to speak against the application here tonight. Of course, at this point in time, we know everybody who is sort of on board for this meeting, whether it be through a cell phone or through Zoom. I see none. We thank Mr. Gordner for his participation here tonight. And again, as I mentioned a couple of times already, thanks for viewing tonight's public meeting under the Planning Act, and the meeting's agenda for Thursday's City Council meeting will be posted soon. And it's Thursday at 1:30. And if you'd like to be a delegate at that meeting, 2 p.m. tomorrow, that being Tuesday, is your deadline. If you want to speak again in favor or have any comments whatsoever or against either one of these two applications, that'll be part of the planning matters on our City Council agenda for Thursday afternoon, November the 19th at 1:30. Have a motion to adjourn then here tonight, made by Ron Fraser and seconded by Connie Lauder. All those in favor? Good night, and we'll see you on Thursday.